Today's chilling story was requested by one of our amazing subscribers. This one's for you, Megan. The first thing I noticed was the sound. It wasn't the ringing payphone or the soft buzz of the neon sign, or even the hum of the vending machine whispering its Morse code threats. It was the register, beeping like it always did on day one. My first shift. The loop had reset again, but this time I was awake for it. I sat up behind the counter, hands trembling. Same shirt, same smell of dust and licorice, same duct-taped rulebook glaring at me like it knew I was already thinking of breaking it. I rubbed my face and muttered, round, 42, 43. The station didn't answer. It never did, not in words. I stood slowly. The front glass reflected the bright red A in the half-dead neon gas sign, and my reflection looked like it hadn't slept in weeks, which, in loop terms, might have been true. This version of me, he wasn't fresh. He'd been through it. And this time, he wasn't going to play nice. I checked the clock. Midnight. In the old script, a shadowless man usually arrived around 12:17 a.m., asked for gas, and stared at me through the glass until I either followed the rule or passed out. Not this time. This time I flipped the rule book closed without reading it. I shoved it into the microwave and hit the popcorn button. The microwave coughed, sparked once, and died. Figures. I grabbed a Sharpie and wrote in big letters on a sticky note. No. Then I slapped it over the register screen. The bell above the door jangled, right on time. He was there, tall, dark, and completely lacking a shadow. His eyes glowed faintly, like distant car lights in fog. He stood just outside the pump lights watching me. I waved at him with 2 fingers and shouted, "Out of gas, try the Waffle House across the sands of time." His head tilted like a confused dog. Then he vanished. That was new. 5 minutes later, the lights started to flicker. The radio turned itself on. Static at first, then a voice, mine, saying, "I think I made a mistake." The coffee machine exploded. I dove behind the counter, hands over my head, as hot liquid and glass shrapnel sprayed into the snack aisle. Somewhere in the back room, something laughed. Not a person, not even an entity, just the station itself having a chuckle. When I stood back up, the register was sparking. The sticky note had been burned halfway through. It now read, "Nope." I grinned. Yeah, well, I'm not going back to the script. I unplugged the radio. It kept playing. Of course, I opened the vending machine and whispered, "Don't suppose you've got a Snickers in there that rewrites time." A bag of Funyuns dropped. Not bad. I sat down behind the counter, chewing slowly, waiting for the next trick. The payphone rang at 3:01 a.m. I didn't answer it, didn't even look. Instead, I watched the freezer door. If this was the reset cycle, then the freezer wasn't just a hiding place. It was a reset chamber, a place the station couldn't control fully. A loophole, maybe. And I needed loopholes. I walked over, opened the door, and let the cold roll out over me like a greeting. "Just us tonight," I said aloud. "No vending machine corpses, no eye monsters, just me, thinking." I stepped in and let the door shut behind me. In the pitch black, I whispered, "I'm done following the rules. If you want me out, you're going to have to break me." No answer, but for the first time in what felt like 100 shifts, I felt something pull. Not a threat, not a scream, a nudge, like something inside the station, something older than the rules, had noticed I wasn't playing the part anymore. And it was curious. That was fine. So was I. I found Lenny in the supply closet, slumped in a plastic folding chair next to a stack of expired fire extinguishers. And something I swear used to be a mop, but now looked like it had dreams of becoming a snake. He didn't look up when I walked in. "Lenny," I said, nudging his boot with mine, "you alive?" "Define alive," he croaked, eyes still shut. "If you mean breathing, thinking, regretting every decision that got me here, then yeah. Real alive." That was a new line. Lenny rarely deviated from his usual shtick, cryptic warnings, salt lines, and the occasional advice about which snacks wouldn't try to bite back. But today he sounded tired, like a vinyl record played one too many times. I crouched beside him. "You know I've been through this before. Loops, dozens of them. Same rules, same horrors. I keep ending up back at day one." "Of course you do," he murmured. "That's the job." No, I said, that's the trap. This place doesn't need workers. It needs patterns. People who follow the rules, people who reset themselves. You're not the manager, are you? That got a chuckle out of him. He opened one eye. It looked foggy, like the lens was starting to cloud. Nope, just the file that keeps you company, he said. Think of me like a screensaver, a default background character. I used to be real, sure, but not anymore. That landed differently than I expected. I glanced at the shelf beside him. Same inventory as always. Cans of kerosene, stacks of salt, a glass jar labeled emergency keys, do not use. How long you been here, Lenny? I asked. He shrugged. Depends. Time works like taffy in this place. I think it's been years since I saw the real sun, the kind that makes shadows that matter. Something in me shifted at that. I looked him in the eye. Do you remember your last loop? He nodded. Yeah, I tried to leave. Didn't work. Got reabsorbed. What if there's a way out? Lenny's other eye flicked open. There's no ritual, if that's what you're thinking, he said. I burned the rule book. I danced under the full moon. I fed the scarecrow. I even kissed the vending machine once. Long story. Nothing worked. I smirked despite myself. So what does work? He leaned forward with great effort like his bones were protesting the motion. It's not the rules that bind you, he whispered. It's who follows them. I frowned. Come again? He tapped his chest. The station doesn't track who breaks the rules. It tracks who acknowledges them. That's what it remembers. I leaned back, thinking that over. So if I stop playing the game, you stop being a player. That was something. Lenny sagged again. His breath had gone shallow. His skin looked even grayer than usual, like he was fading at the edges. Lenny, I asked. No answer. He blinked, once, slowly. Then he smiled. You're asking the right questions, kid. That's why you're still here. Then he dissolved. Not dramatically. No sparks, no screams, just a blur, a soft unraveling, like dust shaken loose from an old coat. When I looked down, the only thing left was his name tag. It didn't say Lenny. It said File, Len 43. I stepped back out into the store. Nothing had changed. Coffee machine still fried, register still sulking, vending machine still twitching like it was watching me. But something had changed. Me. I didn't feel like a gas station clerk anymore. I felt like a ghost waking up. And the station didn't like that. I could feel it. Not angry, not yet, but curious, like it was waiting to see what I'd do next. I always thought the gas station was small. 2 pumps, a single cooler, 1 freezer, 1 haunted vending machine, and a bathroom that occasionally locked itself for no reason. It was manageable, claustrophobic, but familiar. Turns out I had only ever seen the surface. The discovery started with a rat. I was dragging a broom across the snack aisle, mostly out of habit, when I heard a scuffling noise behind the bottom shelf of the cleaning supplies rack. Not the kind of noise that said mouse or dust or even poltergeist with asthma. It was something real. I crouched. The wall looked solid, painted drywall, slightly warped from years of fluorescent lighting and existential dread. But then I saw it, a tiny square in the baseboard, a vent, the kind you'd never notice unless you were trying to vacuum and had accidentally sucked a Funyun into the filter. The rat darted through it. That's when I noticed the sliver of air. Not cold, not warm, empty, like the kind of air you find behind doors that haven't opened in decades. I grabbed the pry bar Lenny kept behind the propane cage, labeled Zombie Use Only, and popped the vent. Behind it wasn't ductwork. It was a tunnel, just wide enough to crawl through. I stood there for a solid 2 minutes trying to convince myself this was a bad idea. I failed. Crawling through that narrow passage was like crawling through someone else's memory. The air was still, not stale, not foul, just unregistered. Like nothing alive had breathed it in a long time. The tunnel dropped down behind the snack wall, curved slightly, then opened into a small concrete chamber. And that's when I saw them. Uniforms, dozens of them, each one hanging neatly on rusted metal hooks. Same cut, same ugly khaki shirt, same stitched name tags. But the names were different. T. Hayes, Timothy Hayes, Theo Hayes, TH number 14. Some were faded, some were newer. Some had bloodstains at the collar. One uniform had no name tag at all. It was still warm. I moved past them into a back wall covered in what looked like lockers. Old-school metal lockers, high school style. Most were open, empty. A few held boots, cigarettes, Polaroids. Only one was locked. It had a placard on it. T. Hayes active. My name, my locker. But I'd never seen it before. Never opened it. Never even knew it existed. And it was locked. I tried every key on the ring from the emergency closet. None worked. But before I left, I looked through the cracks in the locker's vent. I saw something metallic, a glint of light on plastic, something rectangular, like a tape recorder, and then something blinked. And I scrambled back, heart pounding. A mistake, maybe, but it felt instinctual. That wasn't just a locker. That was storage. Of me. Maybe a backup, maybe a copy, maybe a trap. I crawled back up into the store, filthy and shaken, emerging behind the snack aisle like a weird reverse raccoon. The vending machine gave me a single beep. It sounded disapproving. I stood up, stretched my back, and looked around. No cameras had tracked me. The register hadn't beeped, but the rule book, what was left of it, had flipped open again even though I'd shoved it into the dead microwave. It was open to a blank page, and written in faint pencil were the words, "Don't open what remembers you." Too late for that. I didn't know what was behind that locker door, but whatever it was watching me now. And for the first time, I got the distinct feeling the gas station wasn't the only thing keeping me here. I don't scare easy anymore. After everything I'd seen, shadowless people, infinite loops, freezer gods, and Lenny's lunch habits, you develop a tolerance for weird. But what happened next? That scraped something raw in me. I was just finishing cleaning up the crawlspace grime when I heard the doorbell chime. That was odd. I hadn't unlocked the door. I was sure of it. I stepped behind the counter, checked the cameras. No feed, just static. "Okay," I said aloud, mostly to pretend I was the one in control. "Let's not do this tonight." I walked toward the door slowly, ready for another fake customer or melting grandparent. But what I saw, it was me. Standing at the register, head cocked to the side, grinning like he'd just heard a joke that hadn't landed yet. Same khaki shirt, same boots, same messy hair. But the eyes were wrong, too bright, reflective like wet glass. He blinked once, out of sync, and I finally stepped forward from the hallway and stared him down. "You're not me," I said. He didn't respond. He opened the cash register, looked inside, then shook his head slowly, like he was disappointed. "Loop overflow," he said, but his voice was backwards, like someone playing a tape in reverse. "Too many threads. One must close." He reached under the counter and pulled out the mop. My mop. "You want to do this?" I asked, stepping forward. "Really? Because I know all the hiding spots in here. You're using my face, but you're not wearing it right." He moved fast. Faster than I expected. He lunged, swinging the mop like a bat. I ducked, grabbed a plastic tray from the hot dog roller and slammed it into his head. He staggered but didn't bleed. His head cracked open along a seam like a plastic doll. Inside, no skull, just cables, twisting coils of frayed black wires. Tiny lights blinked inside his jaw. I yelled and swung again. The second hit knocked him into the freezer door. He collapsed, jerking like a marionette on the fritz. His voice warbled, "T. Hayes must consolidate." I grabbed the mop from his hand and drove the handle down into his chest. It made a sound I can only describe as dial-up internet in pain. Then he stopped moving. Just stopped. When I caught my breath, I stepped back and looked at the vending machine. It beeped once, and then, ka-chunk, it dispensed something. I hesitated, walked over, and pulled it out. Not chips, not a soda, a receipt. On it, in blocky dot matrix letters. "Too many threads, consolidate, error ID 0007. The name on the transaction, T. Hayes, the time, before I killed him. That's when I noticed something else. The rule book back on the counter had flipped again. But this time it was on a typed page, not handwritten, not scrawled in panic. Clean, formatted text. "In the event of multiple versions, the station will resolve the surplus via force. You are responsible for maintaining singularity." I backed away, mop still in hand. "Neat," I said, my voice shaking. "Guess I'm also the janitor for my own face now." No response, just the faint buzz of the lights. The mop dripped something onto the tile. Not blood, not oil. It looked like memory, a thin silvery liquid that shimmered with scenes. Me at the counter, me cleaning the cooler, me locking the front door over and over. And then, just briefly, the liquid showed a different me. Older, laughing, standing in the sun, holding keys. Alive. I knelt and whispered. That version made it out. No answer, but the vending machine flickered once more and displayed a word across its screen. Try. I didn't sleep that night. It wasn't fear keeping me awake. I'd passed that mile marker a long time ago. It was strategy. I sat behind the counter, hands clasped, staring at the smoldering remains of the rulebook inside the microwave and thinking, what happens if I don't play along at all? I'd tested the boundaries, I'd danced at the edges, but what if I walked off the map entirely? That was the question, and I was finally ready to ask it. I started by flipping the neon open sign on. I used duct tape to hold the switch in place. Then I waited until exactly 3 a.m. and answered the payphone when it rang. Gas and go, I said cheerfully, now serving existential dread and warm taquitos. Can I interest you in a fill-up or a flashback? The voice on the other end didn't scream this time. It sighed, and then it said, You were doing so well. Click. Next, I dug the box out from under the counter, the one meant for the old man in the green truck. Rule 3. It was heavy, taped up, still pulsing faintly like something inside it had a heartbeat and an opinion. I opened it. Yep, just peeled the tape off like I was opening a particularly resentful birthday present. Inside, a set of Polaroids wrapped in wax paper. Each one showed me, not metaphorically, me standing in the store in various poses, sleeping at the register, crying in the bathroom, laughing at the vending machine. Dozens of them, labeled with dates going back 50 years. At the bottom of the box was a single cassette tape. It had no label, just a smudge of something that looked like ash. I set it on the counter and hit the play button on the old radio cassette combo that only worked when the stars aligned and the vending machine approved of your snack choices. It clicked. Word. Then I heard my voice. Don't look under the floor. Don't burn the book. Don't touch the freezer during a static event. Just follow the... I yanked the tape out and stomped on it. Nope, I muttered. You're not turning me into a rerun. By the time 4 a.m. rolled around, I had turned on the open sign during a full moon, opened the box, ignored the register's blinking light, answered the phone, discarded my name tag into the trash. The gas station began to pulse, not shake, not tremble, pulse, like the walls were breathing. The lights no longer flickered. They blinked deliberately like eyelids reacting to something unexpected. That's when I knew I had its attention. The air grew heavier. The pumps outside hissed. I stepped out into the lot, half expecting to get devoured by a spontaneous rift in space-time. Instead, I was greeted by nothing. No visitors, no shadowless people, no green truck, just sand, silence, and the faint red glow of the moon overhead, full and heavy like it was eavesdropping on the world. I stood there, arms out. No rules tonight, I shouted. So what now? No answer. I laughed. And then I went back inside and did something I hadn't done since my very first loop. I sat down at the table in the break room, opened a lukewarm soda, and waited. Around 5:12 a.m., the freezer door creaked open by itself. Not violently, gently, a kind of invitation. Inside was a folded note. I stepped in, grabbed it, and stepped out quickly. No static, no horror, just a message. You're off script now, proceed with caution. I don't know why that made me smile. Maybe because for once the station wasn't mad. It was interested. And when a system built on control starts asking questions, that's when you start finding loopholes. You'd think after all that poking the bear, the worst would hit immediately. But the station waited. It gave me a full day, or night rather, to feel confident, to feel clever, like I was outsmarting it. It let me breathe. And then, at 2:39 a.m. the next night, the pumps began to bleed. It started as a drip. I was restocking the drink fridge when I noticed the wet footprints. Not footprints, really, more like hoof prints, trailing from the door to pump 2. The camera feed outside blinked twice and then cut to static. I opened the door slowly. No wind, no movement. But the smell hit me instantly. Iron, not the metallic kind you get from rust. the kind that clings to your nose and tongue, thick, fresh. I walked out to pump 2, flashlight in one hand, a can of Mountain Dew in the other like it might protect me. The nozzle was weeping something red. It wasn't oil. It was blood. Not old, not fake. Real, warm, thick. Pooled around the base of the pump like it was a wounded animal, and then the screen lit up. Last customer, T. Hayes. But I hadn't used it. Not since the last loop started. I leaned in, squinting at the numbers. The fuel counter was glitching, flickering between 0 and some impossibly large number, and then, right under the price display, currently filling. I stepped back. Something in the desert shifted, a distant creaking like wood twisting under pressure. And the sand, it turned black. Not wet, just wrong. I spun on my heel, sprinted back to the door, and slammed it shut behind me. Locked every bolt, even slid the shelf against it for good measure. From inside, I watched through the glass as the ground rippled, like a heat mirage moving in reverse. Then came the knocking, not from the door, from inside the freezer. My stomach sank. I crept to the back. The door was closed, not unusual, but it was cold again, too cold. Ice crystals crawled across the rubber seal like frostbite fingers, and then it spoke. My voice, muffled behind the steel. "Don't let me out." I blinked. "What?" The voice again, same tone, same cadence. "Don't let me out. I'm not ready." I stepped back. The radio buzzed to life with faint static. I unplugged it, still played. "If you let me out, you'll take my place." That got me. "I'm already here," I whispered. "I'm the one that stayed." No response. Then something shifted inside the freezer, a low scraping sound, like claws across concrete, then silence. I reached slowly for the handle, and then the door jerked. Once, hard. I flew backward, hitting the opposite wall. My breath caught in my throat. The door didn't open, it just stayed still, waiting. I crawled forward and pressed my ear to it, and I heard breathing, slow, labored, like something waiting to swap places. I whispered, "I'm not the one that needs to be freed." Then I did the only thing I could think of. I took the last salt packet from the shelf above the coffee machine, tore it open, and sprinkled a line across the freezer seal. The breathing stopped, just like that, and when I blinked, the door had vanished. I stood alone in the back room, facing a blank wall. Where the freezer had been was now just drywall. No seam, no handle, no frost, just gone. Back at the counter, the pumps had stopped bleeding. The ground outside was dry again, but the receipt printer whirred once and spat out a slip. "Freeze frame cleared, reset aborted." I sipped the Mountain Dew. "You're trying to trick me," I muttered. "You think if I pick the wrong self, I'd disappear." The vending machine beeped once and dropped a candy bar I'd never seen before. Brand, Forget-Me-Not. I left it there. I'd already tasted enough regret for one night. The pumps had always been background noise, part of the stage. I'd hear the occasional click of the nozzle, the soft mechanical sigh when the meter reset, but I never thought much about them. That changed after the bleeding incident. I needed answers, and for the first time I realized I'd never once questioned how the pumps knew who to serve, or why they responded to certain people and not others. So I got curious, and curiosity, as always, dragged me straight into something stranger than fiction. It started with the maintenance panel behind Pump 1. I'd passed it 100 times, usually while chasing something shadowless or trying not to get eaten by the desert. But this time I popped the panel open and found a small screen hidden behind a metal plate. It looked like an old calculator duct taped to the side of a military toaster. The buttons were sticky. The screen glowed a dull green. One blinking prompt, "Access memory log?" I pressed yes. Lines of text began scrolling, each one a timestamp, customer ID, fuel quantity, internal tags like shadow present yes, or transaction override register offline. The log didn't just go back a few weeks, it went back decades. 1971, T. Hayes approved. 1983, T. Hayes approved. 1995, T. Hayes approved. 2007, T. Hayes warning issued. 2024, T. Hayes loop detected, Flagged. I scrolled further. Each entry had GPS coordinates, fuel ratios, shadow integrity values. Most customers were marked as temporary, but one name kept showing up over and over. Mine. Always me, always flagged permanent. The station hadn't just trapped me, it had been tracking me. For decades. I leaned against the pump and exhaled slowly. I'm not the first version of me, I said aloud, but maybe I'm the one that stopped playing nice. I kept reading. One entry caught my eye. It didn't match the others. 1992. Transaction voided, customer deleted, reset incomplete. Customer name T. Hayes, but that one had a note. Attempted manual erasure. Locker unopened, loop collapsed. I stared at it for a long time. Then I looked back toward the store. That locked locker in the crawl space. Someone had tried to use it before. Someone who shared my name. Someone who nearly broke the loop. I closed the panel and walked slowly back inside. The desert wind tugging at my sleeves like a warning. Inside, the vending machine blinked its usual smug glow. The register hummed quietly, pretending it wasn't part of the problem. I grabbed a Sharpie and wrote something on the back of a receipt. If you find this, and your name is T. Hayes, don't trust the rules. They remember you. They remember everything. I folded it and slid it under the edge of the snack shelf. Maybe someday someone else would find it. Or maybe I would. Again. Back at the counter, I opened the duct-taped drawer beneath the cash register. It was supposed to hold emergency tokens. Instead, it was empty, except for a single note folded with surgical precision. I unfolded it. No handwriting, just printed text. You are now operating without parameters. The station does not take responsibility for reality degradation. Proceed at your own risk. I didn't laugh, but I wanted to. The pumps had memories. The station had logs. And somewhere inside all of it, there was a version of me that had tried and almost succeeded. The only question left was, what had they missed? And what was in that locker that even the station couldn't erase? By now, I'd come to expect the station's rhythm. Every time I dug too deep or wandered too far from the script, it would throw a wrench, or a shadow person, or a corpse vending machine at me to yank the leash. But this one came quiet, and it came from inside me. It started when I found the receipt. I was sweeping under the register shelf, not because it needed it. Dust was practically a coworker at this point, but because something kept tapping beneath the tile like it had knees and opinions. I pulled back a warped baseboard and found it, a yellowed slip of thermal paper, curled like it had been hiding there since the Carter administration. It was dated next year, April 17th, 2026. The time was 4:44 a.m., the name printed, T. Hayes, of course, but the signature scribbled at the bottom wasn't mine. Not exactly. The letters curved differently, like a kid mimicking an adult's handwriting, sloppy, slightly reversed. The line item, 1 loop closure attempt, denied. That's when the payphone rang. I didn't answer it. This time the receiver lifted itself, just slowly rose off the cradle, as if picked up by a hand that didn't need flesh. The cord stretched taut, and the phone's speaker clicked on. Stop remembering. The voice was neither male nor female, just blank like a document with no words yet. Start forgetting. The register spat out another slip, same message. Remembering causes shadow distortion. You have been warned. I turned to the radio. It had switched itself on, but it wasn't playing static. It was playing me, not speaking, not screaming, laughing. My voice, over and over, laughing in time with the clink of the gas pump reset. Click, laugh, like it was synced to something deep in the system. A laugh track for an episode of my life I didn't remember taping. And then the walls started to ripple. Not violently, not loudly, just subtly. The texture of the drywall near the freezer bulged and swayed as if it were made of soft clay. The slushy machine melted into itself, looping the same 2 frames of light over and over. The candy shelf tipped slightly, then straightened like it was stretching its legs. Reality didn't bend in half. It tilted. That was worse. That's when I dropped the receipt and backed away. Okay, I said, message received, but I'm not forgetting. You don't get to wipe me like a whiteboard every time I get close. I stepped back into the hallway and found myself in the crawl space, not near it. In it, knees on concrete, locker in front of me. I hadn't walked there. I'd been placed. The station was trying to push me into it like a hand nudging a chess piece, trying to force the next step. I stared at the locker, still locked, still cold. Something inside scraped lightly once, like a fingernail against metal. A tiny piece of tape clung to the front of the locker now, a label I hadn't seen before. "Authorized access, final form only," I whispered. "You want me to open it. You've wanted that all along." The vending machine beeped above me. I looked up and saw the opening to the store. It had shifted, narrowed, like the crawl space was swallowing it. I stood fast. "No," I said, "you don't get to nudge me into it. I choose when." Back in the store, I found the receipt I dropped. It was gone. In its place was a Polaroid, faded, but visible. It showed me behind the counter, smiling, holding something that looked like a key. Behind me in the photo was a shape, a blurred face in the freezer glass. I flipped it over, a handwritten note. "Only one version gets out." By now I'd stopped thinking of the gas station as a place. It was more like a machine, a loop-generating, version-tracking, memory-sifting machine that didn't need gears or wires. It ran on repetition, rules, fear, and me. I was its battery. But batteries burn out eventually, so I started testing limits. First thing I learned, the station doesn't like it when you touch the rule book. Even a half-burned one. I found the charred pages still inside the microwave, curled at the edges like they were trying to fold into nothing. Most of the ink had smudged. A few lines were still legible. Rule 3. If the old man in the green truck pulls up, hand him the box. I tore that page out, folded it once, lit it with the last match from Lenny's stash. The flame caught fast, too fast. It didn't smell like paper burning. It smelled like ozone, like a fuse blowing, like static becoming physical. I stood back as the fire guttered out on the tile floor. The vending machine beeped, once. The register dimmed, briefly, and that night, the green truck didn't come. No headlights across the sand, no tapping at the glass, no box under the counter. I checked the ductwork 3 times. Nothing. That was the first time I felt something like progress. Second thing I learned, the freezer stops working when the rule it's tied to disappears. When I burned the freezer rule, the one about hiding during static, the next static event came on schedule. Radio crackling, lights buzzing, but this time, the freezer didn't respond. It stayed dark, warm, useless, no safety, just a big metal box full of nothing. That scared me more than the static, because it meant the station rewrote itself to fit the gaps I left behind. When I removed a rule, the event didn't stop, it just changed, so I started small. Burned Rule 3, then Rule 5, watched what disappeared. The phone still rang, but now it played different messages. The open sign still flickered, but the faceless figures, they started showing up at different times. No longer full moon exclusive. I realized something critical. The rules weren't instructions, they were limits, not for me, for the station. They were its boundaries, not mine. Which meant, if I could take them all away, it couldn't enforce the loop anymore. But that raised a new question. What about me? What if I wasn't just following the loop? What if I was part of it? I needed to find out what happened when I erased my own parameters. That meant confronting the locker. Again. I returned to the crawl space at dawn. Sunlight hadn't touched that concrete room in years, but this time I brought a battery-powered work light from the maintenance shelf. Set it up like a spotlight. The locker stood exactly as I'd left it, still locked, still humming faintly, like it was breathing through metal lungs. I pulled out the Polaroid, the one showing me holding a key, studied it again, my posture, my shirt, the background. And there it was, on the shelf behind me in the photo, just above the coffee machine, a red thermos. I ran back into the store. There, dusty and forgotten behind the filters and instant noodles, was the same red thermos. Inside, a key. Old, rusted. I nearly dropped it from how cold it felt. Not temperature cold, memory cold. Like it had been waiting a long time for a hand that remembered it. I held it up to the locker's padlock and said, "Final form, huh?" The vending machine beeped again, faster this time, urgent. I turned the key, stopped, then turned back. Not yet, because now I understood something else. I couldn't just unlock the truth. I had to change who was unlocking it. I didn't open it right away. You don't just pop the lid on Pandora's lunchbox and expect to go back to organizing candy bars by expiration date. Whatever was behind that locker door wasn't just a clue. It was the spine of this place. And maybe mine too. So instead of rushing, I sat cross-legged in the crawl space, facing the locker like it was a mirror I hadn't earned the right to look into. I thought about the receipts, the photo, the version of me that had almost escaped in 1992. Almost. Why almost? What had he done wrong? The key was still cold in my hand when I finally stood up. I slid it into the lock and felt the click more in my teeth than my ears. The locker door creaked open slowly, hinges whining like something remembering how to move after years of stillness. Inside, I found 3 things. 1, a tape recorder, same kind I used to play the cassette earlier, already loaded, labeled in fading marker. Hayes, final message. I pressed play. My own voice spilled out, tired and raspy. If you're hearing this, it means you made it as far as I did. Congratulations. You're not me. Not exactly, but close enough. I burned half the rules, tried to swap myself out, tried erasing my name from the logbook. It almost worked. The problem wasn't the loop. The problem was me. The station doesn't trap employees. It traps identity, memory, awareness. That's what it feeds on. That's what it loops. If you want to get out, you can't just break the rules. You have to break yourself out of the pattern. Loopholes in the shadow. That's all I figured out before it took me. Don't make the mistake I did. Don't become permanent. Click. The tape ended. I sat back, blinking. Loopholes in the shadow. I turned to the second object, a name tag. Same style as mine, same fabric. But the name had been scratched out violently, ripped with a blade or teeth or both. Beneath it, etched into the plastic. No file. A memory fluttered through me, Lenny's words. It's not the rules that bind you, it's who follows them. What if the station only reset what it could track? What if all this time I'd been leaving a trail of breadcrumbs with every form I filled, every shift I worked, every time I responded to the name T. Hayes? What if the locker wasn't storage? What if it was containment? The third object confirmed it. A photo album. Old, leather-bound, brittle as onion skin. Every page held a Polaroid. Every Polaroid was me. Different years, different uniforms, different expressions. One had me crying behind the counter. Another had me smiling out front next to a man with no face. Each photo had a tag. Hayes 001. Hayes 002. Hayes 014. Hayes 032. No ending, no escape, just versions, iterations, attempts. Until the last page, no photo, just a note, handwritten by me. You are not the first, you are not the last, but you are the one who knows. Don't record this version, don't label it, don't follow the name, walk backward and disappear. I sat there in the silence that followed, light flickering above me like it was struggling to stay relevant. And for the first time, I understood. The escape wasn't burning the rule book. It wasn't killing copies of myself. It was subtracting myself from the pattern. No name, no shift, no loop, unfiled, untracked, unnecessary. The station doesn't reset what it can't see. I walked out of the crawl space with the photo album under my arm and the name tag stuffed deep in the vending machine's change slot. I wasn't T. Hayes anymore. Not to the station, not to the rules, not to the loop. I was just here. And that was the beginning of getting out. I'd barely made it back to the front counter when the bell above the door rang. Now, after all I'd seen, men with no shadows, freezer voices, vending machines with selective morality, I wasn't easily startled anymore. But what walked in? That froze me cold. She was maybe 8 years old, pale, serious. She wore a pink windbreaker and carried a plush raccoon by the tail. Her eyes were calm, older than her body, like someone had folded 30 years of memory into a child's frame and hoped nobody would notice. And I did, because I knew her, not by name, but by feeling. She walked right up to the counter and said, "You gave me candy, once." I blinked. What? "You told me the Kit Kats were haunted," she said, perfectly flat. I laughed. Then my dad told me not to talk to weird men who work night shifts. That should have been funny. But the room suddenly felt too small. When? I asked. When did that happen? 30 years ago, she said. I swallowed. That's not possible. She just stared. I'm not supposed to remember. That's when the lights buzzed. Not flickered, buzzed, like they were trying to drown out what she was saying. And then her face began to blur. Not melt, blur, like someone rubbing an eraser through time itself. Her nose vanished. Her mouth faded into a soft smudge. Her eyes stayed locked on mine. I'm supposed to be gone, she said through the haze. You weren't supposed to break format. She dropped the raccoon. It hit the floor and hissed, a real hiss, like steam under pressure. And then it evaporated. The air changed, the pressure dropped, the register glowed red. File error, memory conflict detected. Loop stability compromised. I reached out. What's your name? She opened her mouth, but static came out. Pure static. The same noise from the radio, from the freezer, from the other me. And then she was gone. Not disappeared. Not blinked away. Erased. Like the station had finally noticed a variable that didn't belong and dragged it back into the filing cabinet of forgotten things. In her place, sitting on the counter, was a single peppermint, wrapped in pink cellophane, the kind we didn't stock. The vending machine began blinking rapidly. I approached it slowly, heart thudding, and watched it cycle through letters on the small green display. Do you remember her? It repeated, over and over. Do you remember her? I tapped the glass. I do. It spat out a candy bar, not the usual kind. Plain white wrapper, block text in red ink. Remember me not. I didn't eat it, didn't touch it, just left it there and sat on the counter like a man who'd finally started reading the user manual to his own life and realized every page had a sticky note that said, "You're not supposed to be here." I knew now that the gas station didn't just store loops. It stored memories, people's memories, tiny interactions, glitches in time when someone didn't forget. And that little girl, now old, now gone, had been one of them, a loose thread, a splinter in the loop. Because I'd done something kind, something outside the script, and that stuck, which meant there were other moments like that, other cracks in the wall. If I could find more, I could break this whole thing open, not by burning, not by fighting, but by remembering what the station wanted me to forget. After the girl vanished, the station went quiet, too quiet, like the building was holding its breath, waiting for me to make the next move. So I did. I went to the radio. The old analog one on the shelf behind the register. Big knobs, dusty speaker mesh. The kind that looks like it should play baseball games and war updates from the 1940s. But I knew better. The station used it as a mouth, sometimes static, sometimes laughter. Once it had looped my own breathing for nearly an hour, but now I wanted to see what happened when I used it. I unplugged it, pried off the back panel with a screwdriver. Inside was the usual mess of wires and copper coils, but something else too. Tucked into a small plastic compartment like a secret stashed in a church hymnal. A cassette tape, same size and style as the one from the locker, but this one had a label, in careful black ink, entry tape, loop 001. I held it like it might bite. This was the beginning, the first recording. I slid it into the tape player and hit rewind. Took a while, old tape, old gears. It whirred and clicked and hissed like it hadn't moved in years. When it stopped, I pressed play. My voice crackled through the speaker, distorted and young, naive, first-night energy. So, yeah, guess this is my first shift. Nothing weird yet. Well, unless you count the fact that the coffee machine smells like wet pennies and I think the mop whispered at me. A beat. Guy came in around midnight. No shadow. Didn't say anything. Just stared. I didn't sell him gas. Hoped that was the right call. Another beat, then. Someone said there were rules. Haven't found them yet. Click. The tape cut out. I sat there staring at the player, thinking hard. I hadn't remembered any of that, not that version of it. That meant the station had been recording me from the very beginning, not just events, but perspective. It wasn't looping space, it was looping awareness. And that's when I got a terrible, wonderful idea. I took the old tape, grabbed a blank one from Lenny's supply bin, still labeled Emergency Mixtape, 1987, and I recorded over it. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just spoke clearly, directly. This is Hayes, or at least the version of him who remembers. If you're hearing this, it means you've found the player and haven't been scrubbed yet. I know the rules change when you stop believing in them. I know the station only loops what it can track. I know there's a locker in the crawl space. Don't open it unless you're ready to subtract. And, most important, kindness sticks, memory sticks. Even if you forget it, someone else might not. Be kind once. Be kind again. Enough ripples and the current changes. I stopped the tape, labeled it Replay Override, and slipped it into the radio's cassette slot. Then I hit record again, just for good measure, and let it run for exactly 33 seconds. Why 33? Because the register started blinking at 34. A warning? Maybe. Too late. I hit stop. The room felt different. The vending machine didn't beep. The lights didn't flicker. But something deep in the foundation clicked, like a safe unlocking. The register displayed, New memory file detected. Error, origin unrecognized. Filing failed. Untracked version initiated. I sat down in the manager's chair, Lenny's old throne of peeling vinyl and resignation, and smiled. I wasn't erasing myself. I was rewriting the origin. The station would keep looping, but now it would loop my tape. A version where the rules were lies, the kindness mattered, and the ending hadn't been written yet. It happened when I went to get a soda. Simple enough. After rewriting the tape, I felt strangely calm, empowered, like I'd planted a flag in enemy territory, and for once, the ground had shifted under the station, not me. So I walked over to the vending machine and tapped the glass. Something cold, I said, and I've maybe not cursed this time. It beeped once, a slow, thoughtful sound. Then it hissed and opened. The entire front panel slid up, smooth as silk. Not kicked out a candy bar, not popped a drink. Opened. I stepped back immediately. That machine had never opened in all the loops I'd survived. Not once. It had spat things, glitched, beeped. But this was new. Inside it wasn't full of soda and snacks. It was full of bones. Long, brittle-looking ones, arranged neatly into a sitting figure, slouched against the metal coils. Its skull rested at a perfect tilt, like it had been watching the aisle the whole time. And on its face, my face, skin shriveled like paper, mouth frozen mid-scream, eyes wide open. I staggered back. "Okay," I whispered. Okay, you win. That's a good jump scare." I didn't turn away. I couldn't, because clenched in the corpse's teeth was a piece of torn receipt paper. I reached in, carefully, slowly, and took it. Written in faded black ink. Only one version survives. The vending machine shut itself, not slammed, just slid closed like a vault door. A hiss of air. A click. The screen lit up again. Selection error, replica exceeded. And then, consolidate. I stared at the machine, then at the corpse. My own face, same scar on the left eyebrow, same chipped front tooth. This wasn't a symbolic threat. It was a discarded version. A failed Hayes, stored, cataloged. "Is that what happens?" I said aloud. "Every time one of us breaks too far from the loop?" The vending machine didn't answer, but the lights flickered again just once, and the register spat out a receipt. Disposal complete. Version 031. Current active. Version 032. So that's what I was now. Not a man, not even a person. Just a file in a system running long past its expiration date. But something was wrong. Something didn't add up. If the station could dispose of failed versions, why keep the bodies? Why store them? Unless it couldn't delete what it didn't fully control. And the vending machine? It wasn't a threat. It was a vault. I paced the room for an hour after that. Didn't sleep. Didn't sit. I just kept whispering the phrase, "Only one version survives." That meant there was still a version of me unaccounted for, a version that did escape, or got close enough that the station couldn't catalog them. Maybe it wasn't about winning. Maybe it was about becoming the version that couldn't be filed, not erased, not looped, untrackable. At dawn, I returned to the crawl space one more time. I opened the photo album and flipped to the last page again. Still no photo, just the note. Don't record this version, don't label it, walk backward and disappear. I whispered, I get it now. The station's memory had limits, and memory was its weapon. But if I slipped through its cracks, never tagged, never named, it couldn't keep me. I didn't need to break the loop. I needed to step sideways, become the glitch. There's something comforting about salt. Simple, pure, tastes like survival and scratches like time. People used to trade whole cities for it. Sprinkle it across your doorway, and you're saying, whatever you are, stay out. That night I learned it worked the other way too. Lenny's old supply closet had remained mostly untouched since he dissolved. Occasionally the door would creak like it missed him, but otherwise it stayed silent, polite, like an old dog mourning its master. I pushed the door open and was met with a rush of warm air and stale peanuts. The air inside had a memory to it, like the room had seen things and no one had come to clean up afterward. On the middle shelf, hidden behind a jug of windshield fluid and an old VHS tape labeled, "Do not play during storms," I found a tin coffee can labeled, "Salt, use with intent." Beside it was a spiral-bound notebook, the cover cracked and curling like old skin. Across the front, written in Lenny's handwriting, "Failed attempts." I sat down cross-legged on the closet floor and began flipping through the pages. Each one was a snapshot of desperation. 7/19, drew a circle with salt, stood in it for 8 hours. Nothing changed. Radio laughed once. 8/03, buried name tag. Dug it up an hour later. It had someone else's name on it. Weird. 8/14, drank slushy machine runoff, saw God. He quit. Page after page, attempt after attempt, all ending the same way: reset, failure, memory collapse. But one entry, circled twice in red pen, stood out. Only loophole is subtraction. Don't add to the station. Don't log yourself. Don't name the version. Don't replace. Just remove. I traced the words with my finger like they were instructions for disarming a bomb. Lenny had figured it out, or part of it anyway. The station wasn't designed to release people. It was built to loop what it could identify. So if you wanted to escape, you didn't fight the rules. You removed the need for them to apply to you. That's when I saw it. Beneath the notebook, folded tight, was a hand-drawn map of the station. Crude, scribbled, some parts crossed out, but one note in a thick black ink sat at the top of the page. Salted room never reset. Investigate. It pointed to a back wall behind the mop sink, one I'd never noticed, probably because the station never wanted me to. I followed the map, pushed past the mop sink, moved a false panel, and found a small concrete alcove, no bigger than a walk-in closet. The floor was ringed with salt, still perfectly intact. No smudges, no footprints. In the center sat a folding chair and a small tape recorder. Another tape was inside, labeled simply Haze 000. I didn't press play. Not yet. Instead, I stepped inside the circle. The air changed immediately. Still, cool, like stepping out of a dream into a room that didn't know you were real. I sat in the chair, held the recorder in my lap, and whispered, "Why hasn't this room reset?" And I swear to you, the tape recorder clicked on by itself. My voice emerged, hollow, distorted with age. "If you're hearing this, you found the only room the station can't reach. Why? Because no version was ever filed here. No timestamps, no surveillance. This room doesn't add to the system, it subtracts from it. Sit here long enough and the station forgets you were even assigned a shift. But here's the trick. You can't just hide, you have to choose to be forgotten. Every time you act like a clerk, speak like Hayes, follow the pattern, it pulls you back. To get out, you have to step out of yourself, one action at a time. No name, no clock, no fear. Click. The recorder shut off. I sat there in silence for a long time. Then I stood up, brushed the salt aside, and walked out without saying a word. Not to the vending machine, not to the cameras, not even to myself. I wasn't Hayes anymore, not to the gas station, not to the loop, not to whatever was watching. I started small, didn't announce it, didn't mark it down in any fake ledger, just stopped doing things. No register sign-on, no shelf restocks, didn't refill the jerky rack or mop the soda spill that had been there since version who knows what. I let it all sit, let entropy do the work. And the gas station didn't react. Not right away. It was clever like that, subtle. It didn't scold me or flicker the lights, it just watched, waiting for me to circle back, to correct the mistake, to resume the script, but I didn't. When the payphone rang, I let it rot off the hook. When the vending machine spat out a note that said, "Are you still there?" I tore it in half and stuffed it into the expired honey buns bin. I started peeling away identifiers, took off the name tag, flipped my shirt inside out, left the shoes. Hayes always wore those shoes. I walked barefoot for 2 whole shifts, just to see what would happen. Nothing did. That was progress. By day 4 of subtraction, I noticed something strange. The clock above the door had stopped ticking, not slowed, stopped. Hands locked at 2:27. That had never happened before, even in loops where the laws of gravity briefly gave up and the freezer birthed a man made of radio dials. The clock had always ticked. The register, once so chirpy and smug, sat dark. The radio stayed off. Even the air smelled different. Less like recycled memory, more like nothing. Not clean, not dirty, just neutral. I took it further, opened the rulebook, what was left of it, and removed every page with my name. Fed them to the microwave one at a time. No fireworks this round. Just the smell of ink and glue curling into smoke. Then I unplugged the microwave, dragged it out to the sand behind the station, and buried it with a plastic spoon. Took an hour. Felt worth it. That night I sat in Lenny's old chair and watched the monitor. The camera feed outside showed no cars. None. No green truck. No bikers. No shadowless figures. Just desert. Even the tumbleweeds had gone on strike. The only figure visible was me. Or rather, wasn't me. The monitor showed a man behind the counter. Same posture, same shirt, but no face. Just blur, like the system couldn't render it anymore. Couldn't process the version. I walked up to the glass door and looked at my reflection. Same hair, same scar on my eyebrow. But when I moved my hand, the reflection didn't follow. It stayed still. I smiled. "You don't know me anymore, do you?" It didn't smile back. I reached up and covered the security camera with an old burrito wrapper. "Keep guessing." That was the moment I stopped being Hayes, not just in theory, in code. I went into the back room and erased the logbook. Literally. Took a box cutter and sliced out every page where my name appeared. Then I dumped them into the slop sink and poured expired slushy syrup over the pile until it looked like cotton candy had lost a fight. At 3:33 a.m., the register screen blinked once, then displayed a single message, "User not found. Please enter name to continue." I didn't. I just turned off the lights, sat in the dark, and smiled. Somewhere deep inside the foundation of that place, I swear I heard a file drawer slam shut. A soft hiss, like paper catching fire, and a voice, distant, small, whispering, "One less." I woke up to silence. Not the nobody's home kind, the absolute kind. No register humming, no vending machine idling, not even the buzz of the fluorescent lights, which had apparently given up and gone to wherever ghost light bulbs retire. It was the sound of absence. I stepped behind the counter, expecting some retaliation. Maybe the freezer would scream. Maybe the pumps would rise up and take the form of a bureaucratic serpent demanding my time card. But nothing came. Because I didn't work here anymore, not on paper, not in memory, not in system. The register screen was blank, no Hayes logged in, no shift started, not even a blinking cursor, just a pale gray rectangle reflecting a man who wasn't on file. I waved at it. It didn't react. I checked the time, 2:27 a.m., still frozen. I opened the cash drawer. No pushback, no chirp. Inside was nothing but a single sticky note, scrawled in bold red ink. "No one is on duty." I laughed, couldn't help it. It echoed into the empty room like a punchline without a joke. Next, I opened the inventory binder. Nothing. Every page had been erased, blank lines where there were once item lists, timestamps, supply notes. I flipped to the back and found one single record, written in different handwriting. Not mine. Employee removed. Status null. No loop initiated. The page beneath had been torn out. Even the cameras had given up. When I pulled up the monitor feed, the display showed the usual multi-panel view of the store. But the screen where I should have been just showed an empty store. Even though I was standing there, I waved my hand in front of the security dome. Nothing on the screen. Untracked, I whispered. It felt good, like slipping out of wet clothes you didn't realize you'd been wearing for a decade. I stood in front of the vending machine, arms folded. It blinked slowly, almost nervously. Then it spat out a blank candy wrapper. No branding, no message, just plastic. When I turned it over, one word shimmered faintly under the light. Bye. Not goodbye, not farewell, just bye. Like the station itself had finally accepted I wasn't part of its cycle anymore. That night, my first night as no one, I sat outside on the curb, barefoot, sipping a warm soda that never rang up in the system. I watched the desert shift colors under the moon, watched a single cloud drift past like a lost balloon, and for the first time since I'd taken the job, I didn't feel watched, didn't feel listed, didn't feel filed. Then something strange happened. A car drove past, not pulled in, not idled near the pumps, just drove past. Headlights swept across the parking lot, pausing on me for half a second, and then it was gone. Just a car, no melting tires, no looping back around, no stopping. It had been years since I'd seen that. Even if the loop had allowed traffic, no one had ever just passed us by. The gas station was always the final stop, the only stop, until now. I walked back inside. There were still things here, the freezer, the mop bucket, the chair Lenny had once called Throne of Despair, but none of them noticed me. I was invisible to the machine, and that gave me power, because if I wasn't tracked, if I wasn't seen, then maybe I could finally leave. That night I went into the back room and did something I hadn't dared to do in all the loops before. I opened the side exit, not the front door, not the main entrance. The unmarked metal door in the back just past the slop sink, the one that never opened. This time it wasn't locked. The door opened with a sigh, not a creak, not a groan, a sigh. Like something ancient had been waiting for someone to finally take the hint and leave. The metal was cold against my fingers, but not unnaturally so, just the chill of disuse. The frame was caked in dust, a fine coat of it like gray sugar that hadn't been disturbed in years, maybe ever. I stepped through, no alarms, no static. Just a long, narrow hallway I'd never seen before, unlit, not mapped, untouched. Behind me, the door shut itself. Of course it did. The hallway didn't feel like part of the station. It wasn't tile or linoleum. The walls were smooth, almost too smooth, matte black. Felt like I was walking through the inside of a coffin that had learned minimalism. I counted my steps as I walked. 27, 35, 50. At step 60, I saw a light ahead, soft, pale, flickering like candlelight but colder. It drew me in. The closer I got, the more I noticed the air shifting, not with heat but weight. Like gravity itself was unsure if it wanted to participate anymore. I stepped into the chamber and froze. It was a vault, not for money, for records, stacks of them, ceiling high, paper files, VHS tapes, floppy disks, even reels of film sealed in tin canisters, all labeled in the same clean black lettering. T. Hayes, version 001. T. Hayes, version 002. T. Hayes, version 003. T. Hayes, version 031. And at the center of the room, a glowing terminal. Its screen blinked once, then displayed. Active file missing. Slot 032, error, entity not located. I stepped closer. The temperature dropped. My breath didn't fog. It just vanished. As if even my exhale wasn't logged anymore. The screen pulsed again, this time showing something else. A live feed. It was the station, but from above. I could see the roof, the sand surrounding it, the pumps, everything from a bird's eye view, except there was no bird, and in the center of the screen, a thin crack forming across the parking lot, like someone had split the world's surface with a single fingernail. Then the feed glitched. For a half second it showed something else, a shape, huge, humanoid, watching. Not from the station, from above it, behind it, beyond it, like the gas station was a model, and this thing was bending down to examine it on a table too large to comprehend. It had no face, just shifting geometric panels, angles that changed when you tried to look straight at them, and arms, too many arms reaching downward. One of them grabbed the register, lifted it like it was nothing, crushed it between its fingers. The screen flickered again, now showed the inside of the gas station. No register, no lights, just dust, decay, as if it had been abandoned for years. I stepped back from the terminal. "No," I whispered. "That's not a reset, that's a collapse." The machine had begun eating itself, and it had started with the filing system. By stepping out of my identity, by being unrecorded, I had broken the loop's spine, and now it was losing structure. The ceiling above the vault cracked, hairline fractures first, then wider. Black tendrils of skyless sky reached through, sky that didn't belong to Earth, just void, like something behind reality was leaking in through a gap the station could no longer seal. Dust fell in spirals, then a slow, deep sound, not a roar, not a scream. Something like a filing cabinet being dragged across a floor made of bone. It was coming, not for me, but for everything still on record. I turned and ran. The hallway stretched behind me longer than before. I didn't care. I didn't look back, not at the vault, not at the tendrils, not at the faces flickering in the cracks above. They weren't mine anymore. I wasn't on file. I was no one. And that was my ticket out. When I stepped out of the hallway, the station was gone, not destroyed, not on fire, just gone. The door behind me had vanished, the concrete wall smooth as untouched ice. I stood in what looked like the gas station, but the air was stale. Dead still, like I'd stepped into a photo of the place instead of the real thing. Everything was dust. Thick layers of it blanketed the counter, the snack shelves, the coffee machine. The vending machine's lights were off. The payphone was cracked in half, its cord torn like something had tried to climb out of it. The freezer sealed shut with rust. The gas sign out front was a shattered relic, its glass tubing twisted like brittle vines. And the silence. It wasn't just the absence of sound. It was absence itself. I walked to the register, half expecting it to blink at me. It didn't. The screen was black. The drawer was open. Inside was a single Polaroid. I lifted it carefully. A photo of me, early version. Hair still clean, shirt tucked, name tag shining like I thought it mattered. Behind me in the picture, taped to the wall, was a sign I'd never seen before. "Help yourself." Below that, the date stamp. Loop 001 entry log. The first me, the one who walked in here without baggage, without memory. He had no idea what was waiting. I crossed the floor to the break room. The door was off its hinges. Inside, the table had collapsed. The microwave was missing. The fridge stood open and empty, its shelves stripped of time. But on the wall, a mirror, not dusty, not cracked, clean, clear. I stepped in front of it, and for the first time since all this began, I didn't recognize the man looking back. Same face, same eyes, but something was missing. Or maybe something had finally left. The weight, the loop, the file. I wasn't T. Hayes anymore. I was just someone who survived. I sat on the floor and waited for morning. But morning never came. The windows stayed dim. The sky outside wasn't night or day. It was that in-between color, like a TV with no signal, bleeding pale gray. Timeless, neutral, exactly what the station had always wanted me to be. But now that I'd chosen it, it didn't know what to do. No reset, no rule book, no shadowless figures tapping on the glass. Just a quiet, empty store and the fading echo of what used to be a loop. Then I heard something, a car engine. Real, human. A low chugging growl of an old sedan climbing the hill. I stood fast, ran to the window. It passed. Didn't slow, didn't stop. Just a beat-up blue Pontiac with Nevada plates and a bumper sticker that said, "Eat the Void," pulling a trail of dust as it rolled down the road. I ran outside, waving. The driver glanced in my direction, just a second. Our eyes met. He didn't look surprised. He just nodded, kept driving. When I turned around, the gas station looked different. Still dusty, still cracked, but warmer somehow. Not alive, not haunted, just finished. Whatever system I'd been part of, whatever loop I'd been fueling, it was done with me. I was unneeded now. and unneeded things get left behind. Or they walk away. I walked the perimeter one last time, touched the walls, wrote "I remember" in the dust across the vending machine door. Then I rounded the back and saw it. My car, the one I'd driven here in loops ago. It was parked at the edge of the lot. Clean, tank full, keys on the seat. The windshield wipers were still twitching from a dry setting. No trick, no trap, just mine. Like it had been waiting. I didn't question it, didn't speak. I slid in behind the wheel, closed the door, and turned the key. The engine hummed to life like it had never died. I didn't look back, not once, not even when the rearview mirror flickered like it was showing a different building behind me, one with lights on and someone at the counter. But I wasn't part of it anymore. I was just a man on the road again, unfiled, unnamed, unlooped. The desert never looked so wide. I drove for miles, sand to either side, sky stretched tight overhead, and the road in front of me felt longer than time itself. There were no signs, no gas stations, no billboards trying to sell me alien beef jerky or anti-government t-shirts. Just 2 lanes of cracked asphalt and the engine's steady hum beneath my feet. And freedom, real freedom. Not the kind you whisper to yourself when you're halfway through a bad shift and holding a stale cinnamon bun like it's a rosary. I didn't know what direction I was going. Didn't care. Every mile put more distance between me and the thing I'd spent too long being part of. The gas station, the rules, the versions of me that never made it out. Eventually, I came to a crossroads, literally, a T-junction in the middle of nowhere. One road led west, the other curved into the hills. No signs, no arrows, just a single crooked mile marker in the dust. 0. I pulled over, got out, and stood there a while. Desert wind kicked up, dry and hot, smelled like metal and sun-baked regret. As I stretched my legs, a pickup truck passed me, dusty, dented. Nothing strange about it, except the driver. She looked exactly like someone I almost remembered. Freckles, short hair, blue hoodie. She smiled and gave me a small wave, and in the truck bed behind her, a gas station uniform, khaki, folded, untouched. My throat tightened. "Good luck," I muttered. Maybe she was the next one out. Maybe not. The loop was gone for me, but I had no idea how far its reach had once gone. Maybe this stretch of desert had been feeding it for decades. A string of outposts, gas stations, diners, waiting rooms, all versions of the same hungry system. And now they were empty, or being emptied, one version at a time. I got back in the car and chose west. Didn't overthink it. Somewhere out there the sun was setting. I could feel the angle of the light shifting, the kind of light that doesn't ask questions. It just lets you go. A few hours later, I found a diner. Normal, boring. The coffee tasted like time, burned, slow, and comforting in the way only old things can be. The diner was real, or it felt that way. Worn linoleum floors, faded menus with too many stickers over old prices, and a jukebox playing something sad and twangy about trucks and mistakes. No static, no loops, no vending machines judging me. Just peace. I sat in the corner booth by the window, a plate of overcooked eggs in front of me, and a waitress named Rita, because her name tag said so, pouring me a 3rd cup of coffee without asking. "You from around here?" she asked, smiling. "Not really," I said, stirring in a packet of sugar, "just passing through." "Where you headed?" I shrugged. "Wherever the road forgets where it ends." She laughed, that tired, honest kind. "Well, you picked a good morning, skies clear, not too hot yet." I nodded and smiled back. The station was gone, the loop was over, and I was just a man with no name, no time card, and nothing chasing me. Or so I thought. Outside, down the road and parked under the shadow of a crooked highway sign, a black sedan sat idle, engine running, windows tinted so dark they didn't even catch the sun. Inside were 2 men, black suits, black ties, clean-cut, serious. Not locals, not even close. The one in the passenger seat lifted a radio to his mouth. "Control, this is Watchtower 4. Subject has breached perimeter," he said, voice clipped and precise. "Repeat, Apollyon-class threat has escaped containment." There was a pause. The static hissed. He continued. "Subject currently unaware. No sign of dimensional regression. recommending Class 4 response, immediate. His partner looked down at a small device on the dashboard. It pulsed softly, a radar-like ring sweeping across a glowing screen. At the center, a blinking red dot, tracking him. The partner spoke quietly. "He's stable, no signs of replication or reality warping." "Yet," said the first one. They both opened their doors at the same time, got out. They moved in perfect sync, polished shoes crunching gravel, faces expressionless, like men who had seen too much to be surprised anymore. The taller one raised a small black cylinder to his eye and looked toward the diner. Through the lens, they didn't see him. Not exactly. They saw versions, silhouettes layered behind him in the booth like faded double exposures, him behind the register, him in the crawl space, him holding a mop in the middle of a bleeding gas station floor. 100 timelines, all trying to catch up to where he sat now, smiling, laughing, unaware. Back inside, Rita leaned in with the coffee pot. "Want another refill?" "Yeah," I said. "Might as well." She poured. Steam rose. Outside, the taller agent lowered the lens and spoke into his radio again. "Confirming identity. Subject is active, not contained." The radio crackled with static. A new voice answered. "Authorization granted. Initiate observation only. Do not engage until facility is re-established." The agent hesitated. "Sir, with respect, if he breaches again—" "He won't," the voice replied. "He doesn't know what he is. Yet." Click. Silence. The agents returned to the car without another word. The sedan pulled back onto the road, its wheels whispering over the asphalt like a ghost avoiding footprints. They didn't chase him, not yet. They just watched. Back in the booth, I took another sip of coffee and looked out the window. I saw the car pass but didn't think much of it. Just another traveler like me. Just another story waiting to end, or begin. Hey guys, if you like my videos, please like and subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it, thanks. And also let me know where y'all are watching from and at what time. I'm curious.